So, I have made a plan here for a build, of which I have randomly put on a wheel a way to select a random build that I have to make, and it landed on a swamp. And I know this is kinda like a jungle, but it's mostly swamp-like. So I start off using the square piece terrain to just create a basis around my wooden plan. All of the raised up areas are waterfalls with different levels, because as you know, if everything's flat, then it just doesn't look as good. A mistake I made in my Lunar Royale Part 1. So here I am, just building my way around towards the waterfalls, and stacking up like this, which will not be the final product, since this is just a rough plan of what will be to come. So here I made the waterfall area a bit too small, so I had to adjust it, just like that. So here I also created some way across to the river, and now after this I am going to make a slope, and we'll also add this to the waterfalls to make it more dynamic and flowing, because if it's all stacked up like that, like the chapter 1 terrain, you just don't get that same feel of it flowing throughout the swamp, and it just kind of feels blocky and unnatural. Take that as a tip. So I started deleting the plan, and I deleted that whole river part because I just felt like that was a bit too ambitious and I didn't have as much time to build it. So my plan's now all deleted, and I'm creating the bottom of where the water's going to be using the brown cliff gallery with the square piece again, which I think doesn't contrast the swamp cliff gallery. I think it really complements it and just brings it out, and especially when it's under the water with these waterfalls that don't really match, but it's all we can do right now. So these waterfalls are very blue and very clean because they're from the Mega Mall gallery, which doesn't really match my murky water style, but we don't really have a murky waterfall. So now I start to fill in the river with all of these water pieces, and I get the lining up quite wrong at first, but eventually I do go back and fix it. And always when you're using water, make sure that you've got it lined up right, because if you don't, it's just that little detail that make everything just seem off. And you don't want that. You want it to seem like seamless and perfect. You can have little bits that are wrong, but with water, always keep it consistent. Now I added the new tall grass galleries, and I used the more overgrown one and placed it around to fill in some more of the foliage. And it's more green than yellowy brown, but once everything has come in here, it really brings it all out. And these big trees are placed all around to really give it that overgrown and unkept style that I was really going for. I added some of these smaller trees onto it just to really have a contrast and different types of trees and make it seem like really, really packed. So I added in some bushes that also take up a lot of space and are a really good filler, and you would see everywhere in a real swamp because there's just so much plants everywhere, like with this willow tree that's growing out of the middle of the lake, and some rocks around just to add some more variation to the colour, even though it's just grey, because green is already in here. it just still is really good for this, and you always need to have rocks in most builds. So I added some of the smaller brushes, which are also lighter green, so it also contrasts with the other things and matches the tall grass. So I added in some plants that had this red flower on it, because I wanted to add some extra colour, but also not just make it pop out too much. So I also went ahead and added some blue flowers, because if I'm going to add some flowers, then I may as well go all out. So, and then we had some actual swamp trees from the Shantytown gallery, and also some rocks from it, which are a slightly different style and are darker and are more like black rocks, which contrast again and really give it that overgrown and just filler space feel. I added in some lily pads along it, which are great for mobility if you're making it into a playable map, and also are a really nice aesthetic to have around. And when you pair it with some mushrooms for another effect, it's really great. So, the recording cut off and my replay didn't work. Now I'd just like you to ignore everything over here. And here is the finished product, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get all the footage. So over here there's just some boxes stacked on this little ramp. There's a little thing over here of planks. A little bridge with this lamp thing. A mini dock area where there's two different boats with this little port. And then we have the Shrek toilet thing. So I think that this build turned out really well, and I really hope it helped to encourage any of you guys to build environmental and aesthetic builds, and just give on some overall tips on how to build like this. Anyways, that's it for the video. See you.